Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Weird Growth, where we follow the strange and unusual journeys that founders take. Today I'm joined by our director at Ammo, Cam Sinclair. So we're going to do something a little bit different on today's episode. We've actually never looked at Ammo's growth, so we thought it'd be interesting to go back in time, back to where it all began, and talk about the growth of our own business too, before we started this podcast as well. So there's a few cool nuggets in there that I think other services businesses could really learn and benefit from, but also just other principles and things we've seen across the startup journey. I think we've worked with over, almost 300 startups now, Cam, something like that.
That's right, mate.
So, we'll get into it. But before we do, Cam, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Jack. Normally I'm the one sitting on the other side of the table, but this is going to be fun being the guest for a change. So how would I introduce myself? I'm Cam Sinclair. I founded Ammo 9 years ago now after a career in politics, running election campaigns. And I knew I'd always wanted to start a business. I just didn't know in what space. I was always a tech nerd. I always enjoyed mucking around with computers and digital stuff. And so I think I sort of combined my skill set of the marketing, campaign, PR kind of work with my interest, which is in tech. And so how could I help tech founders? I'm not like a technical person, but I love being around people like that and seeing people who are disrupting their space and building cool stuff. So it was about how can I help them with my skill set? And that's how Ammo was born.
Cool. Got so many questions for you today, but before we get into it, pop quiz. If you were to start a business from scratch today, another one,
now I know how it feels.
What would it be and why?
Now I know how it feels to be put on the spot.
Yeah.
I didn't even get to think about this. So if I was to start another business from scratch today, it would absolutely be helping people who are blocked with creating content. I think one of the biggest pain points that we have and that we see our clients experience is not really knowing where to start around, like, do I do a podcast? Do I do like a video series? Should I write blogs? Should I just do Twitter or Instagram? Or it's just a myriad of options. And we're not a content creation agency at Ammo, but it's something which we do see as a pain point all the time. And so I think with the advent, obviously, of the generative AI tools that are out there, ChatGPT being the main one that people will be familiar with, that pain is going to go away very, very quickly for a lot of people. And I'm not saying it's going to completely change. It's not going to completely replace content creators or experts, but it's going to make their job so much easier.
Yeah, just that idea generation in the beginning, like where do you start? Like just be able to prompt and co-pilot and then try and get something to feed.
Well, I think experts are still going to have a better insight into what problems need to be solved. So, for example, here at Ammo, we're a growth marketing agency. We're still going to have a better, more nuanced idea of what our clients are going through day to day. But when it comes to sitting down in front of a blank Word document, now we can sit down with a couple of ideas and then give some prompts to ChatGPT and allow us to step us through that.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting that the new, to answer the pop quiz question, that the new business would be just a generative thing, because you're not going to compete with ChatGPT on that sort of thing. But what it would be is a process to guide people through that. Yep. So it takes that blank page problem away and gives them confidence to create high quality content in a far faster amount of time, and something which is going to tick the boxes that they need from a marketing point of view as well.
So another services business then?
No, I think it'd be a tool. I think it'd be a product.
Tool. Yes. Product.
Yeah. But I think it would be baking in the expertise that we have from running a services business into a tool like that.
Okay.
And I think we'll talk about it later, but the real skill with using these generative tools like ChatGPT is actually knowing how to prompt it to get the best results.
Yeah, co-pilot, get the voice. And that's the thing I guess I've seen as well, based on my experience using it, is that you still need to give it the inputs to be able to take it, where it needs to go with whatever prompt you're
and so I think if you can, again, do that part for them, the prompting, and have that sort of behind the scenes and have your proprietary sort of knowledge of the industry sitting behind that, and then just allow people to walk through the process, that's going to be quite an exciting sort of product, I think.
Yeah. So it'll give them that batch of ideas, and then after that, it's up to them.
What about a LinkedIn post? Okay,
Yeah.
you've got a blog. Well, how do we turn that into some social content? How do we turn that into a video script? How do you turn that into a nice, like, short, sharp kind of, I don't know, like a Instagram story reel or something like that?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the customer for that could be all sorts.
Yeah, I think earlier stage founders who don't have in-house marketing teams, or anyone who might have expertise in a field but not necessarily be great at creating content themselves. Not everyone
could be an agency tool as well.
Very much could be. Yeah, good point. Yep,
something we could use even.
Well, we would be our first customer, I'm sure.
Well, that's what they say. Start a business, solve a problem, solve your own problem, and then
bang on,
go from there.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. Next thing I want to talk about with you is your first job, because I actually think this is a pretty funny story of when you first went to get into what you thought you were getting into tech.
Right, in technology, yeah, right. So, so I left high school, and as an idiot 16-year-old, I walked out of my English TEE exam. So I, for whatever reason, had a bad day, just walked out. And although I did okay in English during the year, because I didn't sit the exam, I failed English at high school. And if you fail English at high school in Australia, you can't go straight into uni. It's a prerequisite. So I didn't have the opportunity to go straight to uni after high school. And so I was kind of forced to go and at 17 get my first job, my first proper full-time job out in the real world. And being a tech nerd, there was a company called American Power Conversion, which did like batteries and big power converters for servers and things. And I saw a company advertising for a job called APC on Seek or whatever, the sort of, probably the newspaper back then. And I was like, oh, cool. And these guys are only around the corner from my house in Bassendean. I'll go and apply for that. And I rocked up to the job interview, and it wasn't APC American Power Conversions. It was APC Australian Pallet Cages, which is like a steel manufacturer. They make pallet racking and stuff for warehouses and pallets and stuff.
What a stitcher.
It was the first job interview. Like, I had literally just turned 17. I only just got my driver's license and got the job. I was a salesperson. And in a lot of ways, that job ended up being one of the best things I could have done, because up until then I was a bit of a computer nerd, but what it did was allowed me to learn the art of sales. It put me in at like the ground floor of a medium-sized, like Australia-wide business manufacturing, with a factory here in Perth. So I got to learn so much about business. I got to talk to the managing director. There's probably 100 staff there, so I got to see from the raw materials coming in to the creation of the product to the design and estimating, using CAD and things like that, to I built spreadsheets on Excel to create the sales tools and things that we needed to then create proposals for customers. And so, at 17, I was selling to middle-aged business owners, big, tens of $1,000 projects in the steel kind of manufacturing industry, and it was really eye-opening, and it made me passionate about business. I'd never had that sort of interest in it before.
Great grounding as well, to becoming a business owner and things like that too, to actually see from go to woe the product being built and all of that.
It really did, because it's very tangible. You're solving a real problem for people, and then you could see it go from just being an idea to a in use, in a big warehouse, forklifts loading on pallets, and become an integral part of an operation of a big business. So that was really cool. Like, we fitted out IKEA, the new IKEA store at the time in Perth, and massive warehouses at Woolworths and Coles and distribution centres and things. And what happened was, because I was like the young upstart, the boss came to me and said, "Oh, Cam, we've got Yellow Pages, which used to be like the big phone directory. We've got the Yellow Pages booking coming up. Could you help us organise that this year?" And it was when the ad was on, where the secretary forgets to put the ad in the Yellow Pages, and the boss finds out, and like Jan's running out the door, and she gets the door open and goes, "Not happy, Jan!"
I remember
because
that.
she forgot the yellow pages, and because at that
Not
time,
happy,
if you
Jan.
weren't in the yellow pages, your business was fucked. Like it was the only way that people found you from discovery.
Yeah.
Not knowing that you already existed. Now it's Google.
Yeah.
But back then it was the yellow pages.
Maybe it'll be the yellow pages again.
Maybe. Who knows? We could go back to the dark ages at any given moment, right? So I got to do this yellow pages thing, and it cost $150,000
Shit.
for this company to be in the yellow pages at the time. And it's basically they had a full page ad and then a few other ads in different categories. Mm-hmm. And if you ever stopped paying for your yellow pages for a year, for whatever reason, you would go to the back of the queue. So it wasn't alphabetical order. You would pay, it was like first in, best dressed. Mm-hmm. There was always like this incentive to keep spending more, so you get like the bigger ad space. And anyway, so I designed up all the ads and saw how much it cost, and I was like, "Hey, boss, you're spending a lot of money here on marketing and advertising. There's this new thing called Google, and you've got a website already. Maybe we could use a little bit of that budget to go on Google ads for this same discovery behavior where someone knows they've got a problem they want to solve, but they don't know the company that they want to solve it with yet."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Sounds wacky, Cam, but..."
What year was this?
This was 2004.
2004, okay.
So people still used Alta Vista probably back then, and Yahoo was probably just as big as Google at the time.
Yeah.
But Google was the one that had this ads product.
Yeah.
You could pay to show up for specific keywords. Mm-hmm. As it turns out, it's the reason that Google's one of the biggest tech companies in the world was that exact feature. Mm. And so he was like, "Okay, Cam, sounds crazy, but let's give you a go, young buck. Give you 10 grand out of the Yellow Pages budget to give Google ads a go." Mm-hmm. So I taught myself how to do that, set all that up. And over the next 12 months, because the Yellow Pages comes out every 12 months, Google generated just as many leads for $10,000 spend as $150,000 in Yellow Pages. Mm-hmm. So we're like, "Hey, we're onto something here." Mm-hmm. So I got to rebuild the website. I got to look at other sort of innovative ways of marketing the business. Mm-hmm. And I was just the sales assistant essentially. But that got me really interested in the concept that actually if you do a good job marketing, sales isn't sales anymore. You're not trying to like get in front of people and try to sell to them. Mm. You're essentially there helping them and taking business orders from them.
Yeah, and that's just a great philosophy in general.
Yeah. So, I learnt that at probably 18. And so by that stage I was getting old enough to then resit the English test and go to university. Mm. And when I was 17 wanted to go and do computer science, now I was interested in marketing and finance and business. And so I was a little bit older. I had a little bit of business experience when I finally did get to uni. And went and studied commerce and with a major in finance and marketing at uni. Yeah.
Cool. So those are great skills that put you in good stead to then start Ammo. Tell us about that. Where did Ammo all begin? And
in between that was probably getting indoctrinated into the political system when I was at university. So
you can't skip that, I guess.
I was at uni in 2007,
which was a big part.
Yeah, at uni in 07, which was the Kevin 07 election. And it was this new wave of like trendy, a younger generation of voters were influencing the political scene. Mm-hmm. Kevin from Queensland and I'm here to help kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But I was on the other side of politics. Mm-hmm. I was on, John Howard had been the Prime Minister for 11 years. He was getting a little bit, people were getting a little bit tired of him. And so there was this, big sort of backlash against that old style of leadership and stability. People wanted something fresh.
So how do you then position the candidate differently? Like what are some of the actual things you do in place to make sure that they're not getting tired of it and they want...
Yeah, well, there are three main vote drivers for people in Australia. So there's the party brand. Mm-hmm. So that is associated with like what policies, what they stand for, what the philosophy is. Mm-hmm. There's the leader brand. Mm-hmm. So that's like who that person is, what how you connect with them, whether you trust them, whether you like them. And then there's the local candidate. So that's like the person that you actually get to vote for as your local representative. And so what you want to do is figure out which of those three levers your particular brand is strongest at and then focus on promoting that. When it comes to positioning leaders, you know what? It's largely up to them. I mean, you can't change, and you shouldn't try to change someone's personality or who they really are. You should allow their unique natural strengths to shine. And leaders do have, like, it sounds funny even saying it, but a lot of power about how they present themselves, and it's up to them the way that they want to present themselves. But you ideally want to have a public persona, which is relatable. It might not necessarily be about the specific issues that they talk about.
Yep.
Those issues might not even affect you directly, but you want to know that if you did have an issue that you needed addressing, so for example, we'll say the cost of housing, that you know that person would be in your corner, and that you know the style of leader that they are, because you can back them to back you, essentially. So that's the sort of thing that you want to demonstrate your style of leadership, particularly in an election campaign where you don't have the opportunity to be the leader yet, but you've got to try and send lots of signals about the style of leader that you are.
Oh yeah, the campaigning starts before you even are in it, right? In terms of
that's what an election campaign is about. It's like a job interview. And so with a job interview, you don't get to see that person in the job yet, but you're trying to tease out what they would be like and if they're a good fit. Yeah. So that's essentially what a leadership campaign is about.
Cool. And then I guess all that grounding's so useful. You then applied, the learnings from Google Ads and various other things into running digital. Yeah, in election campaigns. For the parties and stuff as well. So
so I think Facebook sort of became a bit more of a thing. Well, there was like MySpace, such a wholesome, era in social media. MySpace, you had your little profile, then you put your 5 favorite songs on who your friends were, and then Facebook came along, and it was a new unknown thing. It seemed a little bit niche. Didn't really seem like politics was a good fit for it. But over time, what it became was, it allowed people to hone in on their interests and only see content which aligned with their worldview.
Yeah, the algorithms, right? What's really changed it for elections and stuff. Right. Yeah.
So if you were interested in just skateboarding, then you could just scroll Facebook and all you would see was skateboard content. Or if you were interested in the left side of politics, then you could scroll down Facebook and just see Socialist Alliance and, activism and all that sort of thing. So what it did was, counterintuitively, rather than making the world bigger for everyone, it made it smaller, because you were able to get hyper niche on your interests and connect with everyone around the world who was also interested in that hyper niche, which until social media, that might have only been a handful of people in your town or in your city, but now it was potentially millions of people around the world.
I mean, that idea and principle of social media as well, it's so powerful, but it's also it's crazy. It could be pretty dangerous too. Even with TikTok and stuff like that now, it's just giving you this narrow sort of view of the world.
Yep.
So I guess it's a sort of something that, we've got to be conscious of. But
definitely, yeah. And what it means is that rather than just news organisations, for whatever you think about them, being the source of truth, now anybody can be a journalist or anybody can share information, and it can be taken as gospel by your audience, depending on the relationship that you have with your audience. If they trust you, it doesn't matter what you say. There's no fact-checking per se. So, or even accountability if you say things which aren't quite true, or alternative facts, as has been put to you, as someone said once. So that's the thing about social. It did really change the political landscape over time, and there were a lot of skeptics, and I was probably one of the first to run Facebook targeted ads in Australia during an election campaign. But what we saw was, because we could be targeted with specific interest groups or people who had exhibited certain behaviours, you could say you could focus on particular issues with those people, and then say it's around petrol tax with people who drive 4-wheel drives, and then you could focus on your electric car policy with people who are environmentalists. And so although you're still the same party, you could give different messages or weighting of different messages to different people, and have political success by being more targeted.
Yeah. And I guess just bringing it back to founders and people listening, really, you could argue that every company these days is a media company, right? because you can control the narrative of your brand, you can control the narrative of what everyone believes is the right way to do something, and I think that's, proofs in the pudding there. That
it's a good point. It's no longer about advertising; it's more about entertainment and education. The content that you create. So if people feel like they're being sold to, you're probably not going to have a really good time. But if they feel like they're being educated, that they're learning from you, you're building trust, you're demonstrating your expertise, then that's a much more powerful way to build a relationship than just being point blank advertised at. Yeah.
Okay, back to our regular sort of questions now, but I think that was good grounding for everyone.
Sure.
Ammo. What problem were you solving?
So, getting to the end of my political career, I did see a lot of, small business owners, my parents, for example, who, when they were working with a marketing agency or a brand agency, they would spend large amounts of money on logos and design, and then have that all handed over to them, like nice designs for business cards and logos and things, and then left to their own devices. And so the sort of engagements that people were having with these agencies weren't helping drive business outcomes. It was about that agency selling you something, like a discrete little project, and then moving on to the next one. And what I saw was an opportunity where agencies could have a longer term relationship with their clients and actually be a partner, much the same way as you have an accountant or a lawyer or someone who stands alongside you as an advisor, a trusted advisor, and helps you grow your business. And I didn't see why marketing and advertising and design couldn't be one of those services that, in fact, it's actually pretty critical, because that's the first impression that clients or your customers have of you.
Yeah.
It's the way that you message to sell, or this way you convince people to buy from you. Really critical part. So the model that I set out to create was that partnership model. Whether it was through like a monthly retainer, and so that was sort of like the business model angle of it, but the niche that I wanted to serve was tech businesses that were doing innovative things and disrupting their market.
Yeah, and why was that? Because of obviously the obsession growing up and parents running an IT business.
That helped,
all that.
Yeah, that helped. And I think
but also
I was a little bit idealistic as well.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to wake up in the morning and look forward to what the day had ahead. Didn't always feel like that with politics. So, I didn't want to wear a suit anymore. And I wanted to be able to wear T-shirt and jeans and sneakers to work. I wanted to work with cool people who inspired me, and I wanted to be able to help them succeed. And, if you sort of draw that as a Venn diagram, in the middle there was a marketing agency for tech startups which thought and had a similar kind of mindset to them and went on the journey with them.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. And started in 2014. So back then, WA tech scene was very different, right?
Yeah. Space Cube had just opened. Brody had just started Space Cube maybe a year or two earlier. It was very exciting. There may be like a handful of tech companies that had been successful out of WA, but you could see the trend was coming. Like you could see in Silicon Valley, you could see Sydney. Sydney had a burgeoning kind of tech scene as well. And you could just tell that it was going to happen here in WA. And I was lucky enough to have a good network from the politics that, I knew a few people who were founders of tech companies who got introduced. And I think once I sort of announced, put the flag up the pole that this is what I was doing. Then the network kind of kicked in and people were like, hey, you should go and talk to Cam. And it was a very slow start. Like I was still working part-time at Liberal Party headquarters and then part-time just as a freelancer, essentially. I'd go and sit with my clients, on a daily basis, helping them in their business. And that was that really early sort of learning process about what is the need of the client, what's going to help them the most. How do you structure an engagement with these clients so it works best for them and for you? And then, eventually got to the point where I, maybe had half a dozen clients and didn't have any time anymore for the libs. And super grateful to my boss at the time, Ben Morton, who allowed me to do that ease out transition. it was probably the 4-hour work week. Tim Ferriss's book, which almost mapped out how you could do that from a tradition, like transitioning from a traditional job to becoming your own boss, essentially.
Yeah, nice.
And that was the inspiration for it, and gave me the confidence to make it happen.
And how did you reach your first customers? Was it mainly just like going around those co-working spaces? I know you were in Tech Hub, you were in Space Cubed, you were, getting around offices and things like that. But
yeah, it wasn't even that.
How did you even reach them?
It was, posting on probably Facebook at the time. Hey, this is what I'm doing. Does anyone need help? It was going to probably some, crummy business networking things and just talking to people, asking how their marketing's going.
Not all crummy. Some of them are still around, Cam. Well, be careful.
I think 10 years ago, networking was a different beast. Nowadays, it's genuine sort of knowledge transfer and helping. Mm-hmm. Back then, it was literally like going in to sell to each other. And I think that's really out of vogue now. Yeah.
Like those like AA kind of meetings.
We shouldn't really name any names, but
stand up and sort of
that kind of thing. Yeah, like you just send your sales exec along to go and beat the drum.
Yeah,
and tick your box. So they're fallen out of vogue, thank goodness. But yeah, it was essentially just making it known that this is what you want. And you're looking for advice, or you're looking to help people.
Yep. I think back then as well, you did quite a few talks. I think that's when I met you at one of those.
Yep, that's true. Yep. So I got involved in Bloom, Morning Startup, a few of the other meetups and things around town. And yeah, I don't know why I knew this, but I sort of just knew at the back of my head that if you can be helpful, then good things will happen. Mm. So, I wanted to help, even if I knew that there was no monetary sort of outcome from it. Mm. I was also super involved in participating at Startup Weekend, the hackathon weekends. Those, if people haven't been to them already, you go along on a Friday night with an idea, you pitch that idea to a room full of 100 people, and then people choose which idea they want to work on for the weekend. You form a team. Yeah. You try and build it in 48 hours. And then you pitch what you've achieved to a panel of investors on a Sunday night. Yeah,
and just quietly, Cam was known as a bit of a guru. You won how many weekends? You won like 3 or 4 or something?
I don't know if I won them.
You won a few. Yeah. Texty and things like that.
But that didn't actually win. Like, that's the thing. Yeah. It had it was really interesting. It did really well after the startup weekend, but we didn't. I think we came third with the Texty, for example. Yeah. One that we did win was called Very Vote. Yeah. That went on to raise some money. We continued on as a business for about 18 months with that one, and that was for coming from the political background, online voting. Yeah. And we'd just been through an election, I think, in 2019. No, sorry, 2016, where the election outcome wasn't known for 2 weeks. So we're here in the 21st century, and people are still voting with pencils and paper. Yeah. And ballot boxes literally fell off the back of a truck between Greenbush and Pemberton, and they couldn't find it, and they had to rerun the entire election in Western Australia again at the cost of $30 million. Crazy. So every time I talk about that intersection of tech and politics with people, they ask, like, why don't we have online voting yet? Yeah. It took us 18 months to figure it out with Very Vote, but we did discover there is a pretty fundamental reason why. And it's probably that we just aren't ready yet as a society for every individual to have a unique and very secure personal ID, which they can vote with.
We're not good with our own security.
We're just not. There's a cybersecurity literacy that needs to exist for that amount of trust to be able to happen, something like voting. There's nothing higher stakes. Like, bank security is one thing. Money can be replaced or insured. But as we saw in America, when democracy is questioned, it creates some pretty fundamental problems. So until we can solve that problem, electronic online voting is probably not going to happen.
Well, shout out to Cyber West Summit coming up.
Right, yeah.
Improve your cybersecurity leadership there.
And, technologies like blockchain are probably where that's going to get solved. But it's definitely going to be an education or some sort of fundamental shift in people's mindsets about how they protect their digital identity.
And you met Adrian there as well, right? And
Adrian Pedersen, yes. Yep. He's now the co-founder of Afterwork VC. Yep. So he was our CEO at Very Vote. Like a brain at UWA. Through Bloom as well. So, I think that accumulation of just being involved in the community and being as helpful as possible and walking the talk really does help for a services business like this. Yeah.
What was the point? Because I guess at that point, growth marketing as a concept was still pretty new. Like, what was the point when I guess you started to realize there was some real value here, or you had something that was worth?
Well, I think back then we called it growth hacking because that was like the trendy sort of concept at the time.
Yeah.
And everyone was looking for a silver bullet. Like, what's the growth hack we can do?
Yeah.
Everyone would talk about, the Airbnb growth hack of scraping Craigslist
exactly.
So everyone was looking for that little silver bullet.
Yeah.
I think the reality was that, and I think I certainly, spoke about this as much since then, is that there is no silver bullet. Being as close to your customer as possible and having that extremely deep understanding of their behaviour and how to get them to change their behaviour is the best form of marketing, because then you're no longer guessing, you're no longer advertising, you are helping.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the sort of philosophy that I brought to it, and that's where growth marketing as a concept comes in, where it's you discover that as deeply as possible about your customer, and then you try to build a process which is repeatable and scalable inside your business to help people take that in an automated way on your journey. But you've got to do the manual part first to learn that.
You've effectively built like a good growth team now with Ammo.
Yeah.
Like how did that come about? Would there be anything that you'd change, or like do you think you just had to build that up over time? Like,
well, I think at the first few years, I never really thought Ammo would be anything beyond me being a freelancer. But I think when I discovered the power of having a team around you and then teaching them your skill set and the way that you do things, that multiplication effect is more than just 2x or 3x. It's like it's exponential. Adrian was probably the first guy after we wrapped up Verivote. He came and worked with me for 3 months, and I saw the power of having an extra set of hands. And then after he was wrapping up with that 3 months, I said, mate, I can't lose you. I need you to help me find more people. And that's how he met you and Liam. We had a bit of a sort of open recruitment process. We were originally only hiring for one, but I met you and Liam, and I was like, I can't say no to either of these guys. I need both of them. So that was probably one of the big unlocks for me, I suppose, is the understanding the power of teams from in a business point of view. And even if you think that you've got a technical expertise that is in your head that you can't duplicate, it's probably not true. If you put the effort into teaching others the way that you do things and creating processes around it, that actually at its core is the engine of a business.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I sort of learned from working with you guys. At the time, it felt like a massive risk. Like I'd never paid someone's wages before.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do superannuation or payroll. But it's amazing when you free yourself up from the day-to-day delivery work, that what you can do to then take your business to the next level as well.
Yeah, for sure. Like just having that space and that thinking time and
stuff
like that
it's
as well.
almost not quantifiable, but it feels counterintuitive at the time, but it's always worth it. And then I think the second lesson was the power of culture and like person to person fit in a team, and making sure that you get the personality fit right before you put too much credence in skill set or experience, because skills with the right attitude and the right personality can be taught really well, and experience can be gained. You can't change people's personalities.
You've seen a lot over the years, 9 years working in growth marketing. What are some of like your highlights or like favorite campaigns or like even tech startups and stuff you've been a part of? And I know that you don't want to pick any favorites here, but maybe just some examples from some growth teams or from just campaigns and stuff. I mean, there's been times where you've also taken on projects like the Basil campaign, for instance.
Yeah, that's true.
It's pretty different.
I don't want to lean on politics.
Maybe a tech example, maybe.
Well, one example that comes to mind is probably in the heady days of probably even before the real bubble of Bitcoin and crypto.
Yep.
We worked with a startup called Bamboo.
Yep.
And
still doing
yeah,
well.
They're doing super well. But early on, it was just a concept. They didn't have an app or anything like that, and we were just helping them build an early access list.
Yep.
And we wanted to get as many people like beating the door down to use this thing when it launched as possible. And we did some really cool creative campaigns around that, targeted at the time, things on social media. I think we paired it with some PR and some content. That was really cool. There was a company which no longer exists, but was doing like vehicle crash alert systems.
Oh, yep.
And that was, really kind of like interesting hardware product. And, it was one of the cases where it was a technology looking for a market as opposed to the other way around. Like, I knew it was going to be going into vehicles, but we didn't know whether it was going to be like motorbikes or new cars or, four-wheel drives. And what we discovered, the caravans or grey nomads driving around Australia who were often in areas out of radio or phone signal, were worried about what would happen if they accidentally ran off the road and there was no one around to sort of rescue them. So, we did, I think we've got that story up on the ABC or something like that. We took that news story and then ran that as a Facebook ad targeting people over 50 with caravans. And we had this massive sort of list of inquiries come through as a result of that.
Awesome.
So I think it was there are lots of lessons there, but something about content that really stood out for me is that authentic content that maybe comes from a third party, like a news article on the ABC, and then taking that and then targeting that at the right people will perform so much better than something that you've probably created yourself to look and feel like an ad and try and sell some benefits. Yeah, you want to sort of show that it's other people and there's other third-party trusted sources talking about it.
And we've seen that combination work quite well a number of times, right? Like the PR mixed with a good balance of digital spend mixed with, some thought leadership or a trusted brand. All those three things coming together to build that list and momentum.
Yes.
Just keeps working.
It does. It's amazing because everyone else's instinct is often like, let's just run some Google ads, let's just create some banners and post them up on Instagram, and we'll, the right people will see it and the right action will happen. The third, probably the lesson from that is have a clear call to action. What are you asking people to do as the first step towards becoming a customer? Too often, I think people just go for just brand awareness and just broad, like bombard people with that we exist. But if you're not asking them to do something, if you're not asking them to sign up for early access or, get the discount code or asking them to vote for you or being explicit about what you want them to do, then you're going to come to a dead end. Only the most motivated people are going to go out of their way to find,
for sure,
to dig around and find what you're asking. So just be clear.
Cool. On that, while we're talking about advice, one big piece of advice for founders.
I have asked this question of about 40, 50 guests now on Weird Growth, and there's a few themes that pop up. My one big piece of advice to founders is go back and look at each of those because there's different strokes for different folks with these things. There's not one, as I say, one silver bullet. I know it's a cop out.
Yeah, it's a cop out. Come on, Cam. Okay.
I would say if you are waking up in the morning and you're not looking forward to the day ahead, you need to solve that.
Right. So focus on what you want.
Focus on what's going to excite you and give you butterflies in the tummy because you've got something fun to do each day. It doesn't mean shying away from hard work or difficult things. It means leaning into the things which motivate you and have that understanding of your personality. Do a personality test, do DISC or one of the other myriad of things out there to understand what it is that motivates you and then create the conditions for you to be your best professional.
It's great.
Thanks for pushing me on that. Not letting me cop out.
That's great. That's a good response. Show and tell. Any tools or things that you already mentioned ChatGPT.
I could cop out and talk about that.
Can't do that one. That one's off the table.
Okay.
It can be anything. New cafe.
Well, so at the moment, I'm not working full time in the business. I'm exploring other ideas and things. What are the tools that I've been using? To be frank, I've stopped striving for inbox zero.
Okay.
In Outlook.
That's a good one.
I used to be a freak for it, but I've discovered I just don't have the time for it. And so what I've realised is
it's like a useless stat.
I actually spent so much time in Outlook managing with emails to get to maintain inbox zero that I've realised is actually not that necessary. There's probably 2,000 emails just in the inbox now. But I survive.
So many founders listening will love that. I haven't seen a founder with more than, 2,000 unreads. So
it's okay. It's not the end of the world.
Don't worry about inbox zero, guys.
Yeah. It's probably that.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, not good for superhuman.
Well, superhuman has its place.
It does, yeah.
And then the other thing is just like my little my little black notebook is my source of truth. So no longer is my email my to-do list. It's whatever goes in there with a star next to it is an action. And so I know what I'm doing each day.
That's it.
And the calendar helps too.
Cool. Just being organised, basically.
Yeah.
Being organised but not worrying about inbox.
Being intentional about which bits need organising and which don't.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else that you wanted to talk about today? Anything I missed from the Ammo story or just growth stuff?
Well, I think the sort of chapter that we're at the moment with Ammo is that you're our general manager and you're doing a fantastic job, by the way. It's been probably the most rewarding part of my involvement with Ammo is seeing you step up into this role and, you've been in training for it essentially for nearly 6 years. It's very rewarding to see you have the space to make it your own now. And the rest of the team steps up into those gaps that you're sort of vacating as well. So I think, over 9 years, the really cool thing is seeing it Ammo become its own. It's not just about me anymore. I'm not at the center. And yes, it allows me to go off and do other things in life and still be involved in Ammo as a director. But it's like seeing your kid go to high school or leave high school and go to uni now.
Yeah.
Like it's become its own self.
I guess, but my response to that would be like where people are important and at the center, but really it's our community and customers, right? Like that's probably the biggest thing that would be.
Yeah. And that provides the momentum that the business has is that no longer am I, going out trying to find clients. We have a reputation in the market now where people, if they're looking for, they're a startup founder or a scale up, and they're looking for someone to help them with marketing, they're going to find their way to us eventually because someone's going to know someone or they're going to be recommended.
Yeah, that's cool.
And, as funny as it is, we're a marketing agency that doesn't do a great deal of marketing ourselves because we have that track record, we have that reputation.
Yeah. So build the reputation. That would be your final.
Well, I think it's like, what do you stand for?
Yep.
Why do you exist? I think this is sounds a little bit generic, right? And then demonstrate how you do that for free and be as helpful as possible. Help first and good things will happen. Yeah.
Cool. Any final plugs, asks?
Yeah.
People add you on LinkedIn. Where should they go if they want to contact you?
Add me on LinkedIn if you want to get in touch with me. Join our mailing list at ammo.marketing.
Yep.
Subscribe to Weird Growth. And check out myfunnel.com.au as well. I think there's going to be some really cool things that we build in there this year.
Might be, yeah.
Especially around AI and things. And we've learned a lot of lessons from that. I think we've had over 1,500 submissions on it now. It's to help founders with a starting point for what they should do with marketing, cut through some of the confusion and the overwhelm that you get when you start with your marketing journey. So myfunnel.com.au, give that a try. And this is the knowledge that we've learned over 9 years baked into a nice little neat tool, and it's free.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yep.
Well, thanks, Cam, for joining me on the show. Thanks, everyone, for watching. If you did enjoy this episode, wherever you are watching or listening, please like, subscribe, and give us a review. You can reach out to us at hello@ammo.marketing as well if you have a question for the team. But that's all we've got for today. Bye.
Bye-bye.